never guess where I found this dining room table. It was in someone's trash pile, and even though the top was in rough shape, I love the look of the classic legs. So I went ahead and painted the legs and sanded the top, and today I'm going to modernize it by creating an inlay all the way around the edge of the table. To do that, I'm going to start with a router. Before I get my router, I'm laying out 1x8s on each edge to use as a guide for my router. I decided to go with a 1x8 because that's the distance away from the edge that I wanted my inlay channel to be. So all I'm going to do now is clamp these boards down, and then I'll be able to use it as a guide to push my router up against to make sure I'm the same distance away from the edge all the way around the table. Don't forget to include the width of your router base when determining where to clamp your guides. Mine adds almost 2.5 inches. Since I'm doing a plunge cut with my router, I'm going to adjust the depth gauge so that my channel is the same depth from when I start to when I finish my route. So I'm just going to use the board to adjust the depth. Here I go. It's best to remove only 1/8 of an inch or so with each pass of your router. For my project, that means I'll route the same pattern twice to get the depth that I want. Slowly but surely wins the race when it comes to routing. Ah, now that's satisfying. Now it's time for the finishing steps. Before I mix the resin that's going to become the inlay, I'm going to paint my channel white, and that does two things. One, it closes off the pores of the wood so the resin doesn't soak down into it, but also when I was doing some testing, you can still see some of the wood grain underneath the resin, and I really don't want to see this particle board. This step is optional, but I highly recommend it. It won't take any time for it to dry. Since resin doesn't really stick to wax paper, I have a piece that I cut right here to be my drop cloth, but I also use small pieces of it to dam up the edges, and then I went ahead and used painter's tape to tape the face of the tabletop so that I don't drip any resin on my unstained wood. So I have an epoxy resin here. It's 2 parts, and I need to mix the resin and then add a few add-ins to make it the color that I want before I add the hardener. I picked up this throwaway container with a pour spout at the dollar store. Here I'm just eyeballing how much baby powder I add. You do want to keep it in check and don't use more than 10% baby powder so that the resin will set up properly. The baby powder will help give the resin the milky look I'm going for, while the glitter just makes it sparkle. This brand of resin that I picked up from Woodcraft requires 2 parts of part A to 1 part of the hardener, or part B. Then stir again. Slowly and carefully pour your mixture of resin into your channel. If you need some more resin, quickly mix up another batch and keep pouring until it's flush with your table. There are a few ways to remove any potential bubbles. Using a hairdryer from a distance, the heat can help them rise to the top, but you don't want the resin to be blown away. Another option is to closely blow the bubbles out with a straw. Once the resin has completely cured, sand the resin channel and any resin that may have made its way to your tabletop. I'm sanding the dried resin to dull the shine. If you like yours the way it is, then so be it. You're free to leave it. Now that my resin has hardened and I've had a chance to sand it, I'm ready to stain my tabletop. I decided to go with a stain poly mixture to hopefully reduce some of the steps in the dry time to finish up this project. A little stain on the resin isn't going to hurt it, so just wipe it off with a rag. And there you have it, a classic trash to treasure tale with a modern twist. Thanks for checking in. I've got so many projects to share with you, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next episode.